ding that little bell thingy so you can get all of the notifications.
Ladies, gentlemen, and that technicolor rainbow in between, it's your boy Animane coming back to you with another solid state review, She-Hulk Attorney at Law edition. That's right, did you really think I wasn't gonna review this show? It's been way too long since I've covered an MCU show. And that's for good reason, because most of them have been so god-awful and unremarkable that they haven't even been worth talking about. Miss Marvel broke that trend for me by both pleasantly surprising me and not letting me down by letting me down. But we'll talk about that at another time. Right now, we got to talk about our girl Shoki, because the first episode dropped today and oh boy. But before we get into that, I do have to make note that the character you saw in the intro to this video is actually Catherine Scarlet, the main character of the Spider Circle. So if you want to see more of that cutie with the pigtails, head on over to Tapas where you can read her prologue. And definitely subscribe and keep it locked here so you can hear about how the comics themselves are developing. But we got to talk about our girl Shoki, because holy Christ on a crack-infused cracker. Before getting into spoiler territory, because of course I'm spoiling stuff, because why wouldn't I can best describe this show as bad with some breadcrumbs of good. There's these problems, these humongous glaring problems with the show, but then sprinkled on that is tiny good things, like holy crap, the fight scenes look like absolute dog turds, but occasionally it goes between late PS1 graphics to early PS4 graphics, so yay? A lot of the dialogue is cringe, but the dynamic between Jen and Bruce as cousins is good, so yay? That's basically the first episode. I did a poll on my community tab yesterday to see how you guys would prefer for me to cover the show, whether it's going to be week-to-week episodic reviews or just wait till the whole thing's over. After watching this episode, I don't know if I can wait until the end to cover everything, because then the video may be like 2 hours long and I don't want to put y'all through that. But we'll see. I may do bi-weekly reviews. I could easily be here all day just talking about this one episode. And that's really the silver lining of the entire MCU at this point. At least it's giving us YouTubers something to talk about and entertain y'all by continuing to suffer through this train wreck of a cinematic universe that's only going further and further off the rails with each installment. But okay, that's enough of the preamble. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. The show starts off with Jennifer Walters, played by Tatiana Maslany. She looks like she's giving some type of speech to the court, but as the camera pans out and we see more of the background, we can see that she's actually not in court. So she's like doing a little practice run, and we see a little bit of her dynamic with her coworker and her best friend. And already we're getting, they're doing the things. The show just started and we're already getting dangerous amounts of validation from the surrounding cast. Now it is coming from Jen's best friend, but she is just laying it on so thick, and we haven't seen Jen actually do anything yet, which is my bigger problem with this show. It's more what I think this show's biggest issue is, which is it suffers from tell don't show like tremendously. She's telling us that Jen's all these great things, but we never see her actually do it. We never see her be great. We never see her be awesome. She's just there. And from the looks of things, she's not even like a highly accomplished lawyer yet. She seems like she's relatively early in her career. So what is all this coming from? What is it actually doing? Once again, the same problem with Captain Marvel, the same problem that, to be honest, so many heroines and female characters are plagued with these days, where the script just trips over itself to tell us all these attributes about her instead of letting us see it and experience it, thereby allowing us to connect with the character and like her and really be invested in her journey and what she does. Nah, just have another character just rattle off a bunch of adjectives that describes her that may or may not even be true, and we have no way of knowing because the show just started. Off to a great start. I do have to say, though, that I really like Tatiana Maslany's portrayal of Jen, and she has great comedic timing. Honestly, I hope this show turns around, because it would be a real tragedy to waste such a great comedic talent on stupid MCU schlock. When then we go right into some fourth wall breaking and find out that Jen actually has already gotten her She-Hulk form. And they incorporate it in a way that I think may work with the MCU's overall theme of multiverse and stuff. I mean, she could easily be breaking the fourth wall and addressing an alternate universe. Maybe they're acknowledging the existence of the real world that we live in as one of the several multiverses. I mean, that I think would be a cool thing. I hope it is, because the MCU needs something cool to happen. I mean, Jesus, what? So I'm glad they did that. Good points in this show's favor. Don't get used to it, because they ain't a whole lot more. Anyway, we then do a flashback to a few months prior where Jen describes through flashback how she became She-Hulk. And it starts off with her and Bruce going on this road trip. And we see Bruce's arm is still in the sling from everything that happened in Endgame, so we know it hasn't been a terrible amount of time since then. They're talking about watching Captain America documentary on History Channel or something, and Bruce also has this inhibitor that keeps him from going hulking out at all. And then there's the whole line about Captain America was a virgin, which I don't think was that bad of a line. They're just talking about Captain America. I mean, sure, the joke wasn't really funny, but I mean, I don't think it's emasculating Captain America to speculate about whether or not he had got some before, everything went down. I mean, if we're going to do the thing where we treat these characters like real people, these are the type of dumbass conversations that people would have about them in the real world. I mean, that's how we talk about celebrities. That's how we talk about heroes and figures of history. How many times have we talked about Martin Luther King getting his dick wet right after he delivered the I Have a Dream speech and whatnot? Stepping out on Coretta and doing all this other stuff. So that was not a problem to me at all. Problems come in when we get to the whole accident which causes the transformation. A spaceship shows up out of nowhere. Obviously, it's going to become a thing later in the show. Causes Jen to crash the car. And when she gets out the car, she slices her arm on a piece of jagged metal. And then when she drags Bruce out the car, some of his blood gets into her open wound, which triggers her first Hulk out. She loses control and is confused, so she runs through the woods all through the night, ends up going to this bar where she goes into this bathroom, and these women come in there, and she's like, oh girl, what happened to you? And one of them gives a line which I can just imagine some people having an issue with, but I promise you it's fine. One of them says, you don't need him or her or them. I mean, personally, I think it's rather inclusive that they're acknowledging the fact that Jen could have been abused by a woman. That I think is fucking great. I mean, it's called inclusivity. I mean, women and non-binary people and anybody can be an abusive asshole. So there you go, bam, diversity. But then she goes outside after she gets some clothes from the ladies, and they let her use the phone. And then we come to the first of what I think are actual problematic scenes. Basically, she's standing outside, and this group of dudes walk up to her, and they're all, hey, baby, what's your name? Come on, why don't you want to talk to us? And they're doing the thing, okay? They're doing the thing where the guys are being rude assholes and surrounding and talking to a woman who, by her body language and, voice inflection and stuff, clearly wants to be left alone. It's an asshole thing, even if you're not actually going to do something bad. And I'm saying this as the guy who's had to accompany women to cars and stay with them in bus stops, because some dudes are assholes, and some dudes' assholery doesn't just stop with, oh fuck you bitch, you didn't give me your number, that's why you ugly anyway. Sometimes it goes way farther than that, and I would rather not have my female friends or anybody really end up being another tragedy story of murder or anything like that. So my problem is not with the scene. My problem is how the scene is executed, okay? It's basically set up to be this thing where we see how she's going through sexual harassment and street harassment, and that's one of her triggers that causes her to Hulk out, and then at which point Bruce shows up at the last minute and tackles her and smuggles her to Mexico. More on that later. But my critique about the scene isn't the subject matter, it's the way it was written and the way it was executed. Honestly, I think it was too realistic. It was too played down. Okay, I've seen that scene play out in real life way too many times, where the guys approach a woman, they're all up on her, she clearly doesn't want to interact in that way with them, but they just won't go away. That is a real thing, that's obviously a real thing that plenty of women go through, and it sucks. But this is not real life. This is not supposed to simply mirror real life. This is a TV show. It is a superhero TV show at that. So if you want to incorporate this as an aspect of her story and show how she goes through so much shit and dudes are assholes to her and everything, like, lean into it. Show them, like, you don't have to have them try to sexually assault her out in the open, but like, have one of them lose their temper. Like, have them do the thing where they're all, hey baby, how you doing, you look so good, and then she tells them she don't want to give them a number or whatever, and they're all, oh fuck you bitch, you ugly, blah blah blah, and they're laughing at her and ganging up on her and shit, and they make it a whole thing so that we can connect with her. The problem once again is show, don't tell. Okay, you need to actually show things that help us connect to the character. If they weren't going to have it be this really big overblown thing, they could have had it be something that happens a lot. Maybe she's going into work and she's getting hit on by her coworkers, and then also one of her coworkers is like less competent than her, but she gets passed up for a case and he gets the case, and it's explicitly said, or heavily implied at least, that it was because, you know, she's not taken seriously at her job because she's new and a woman and stuff. Like, do stuff like that so that we can connect. You can't just say life hard because woman and then have this be your only example of that, because it does not work. Okay, it does not make a good narrative. You need to show things in a way that will help people connect with the character beyond just the superficial stuff. Moving on, we go to Mexico now. She's in this lab, and it's Bruce's lab that he has in that he made in Mexico, and he's Professor Hulk now, or Smart Hulk as they call him in the show. And I think that's just a tragically underwhelming name. Professor Hulk is better. You need to go back to that. But I actually kind of like this, and this leads to one of the better aspects of the show, which is showing Jen and Bruce's dynamic as cousins. You can tell that they're close, and they have a lot of like that family dynamic, that sense where you just sort of know a person in a lot of ways. That's there, and I really like the competitiveness that comes out to them between them. I like their banter. It's easily the least cringeworthy aspect of the show so far, but I do hope Bruce goes full Incredible Hulk at sometime in the show. It would be criminal if it doesn't happen. Also, I do like how Bruce is visibly still grieving the loss of Tony and everybody else. He talks a lot about his interactions with Tony, and you can hear it in his voice. You can see it on his face, how, you know, it's not heavily just beating us over the head, but clearly this man misses his friends who are gone. You know, but anyway, he's telling her about what happened and how it's the banner gene they have, which interacts with gamma radiation in a specific way that lets them do this thing, and how it's dangerous and she has to learn how to control it. And we actually see over the next course of the next few days, we see her struggle with the idea of being a Hulk. We see her not just pick it up and be like, oh yeah, I'm great, this is going to be awesome, which I think is good. At least it would be good if it were executed better more towards the end. Okay, I like how she rejected it. I mean, that's standard hero's journey stuff. You know, when you first get the call, you reject the call. That's standard shit. There are a couple scenes that I didn't care for in lines. Like, I liked the buzzsaw room thing. It just was completely absurd and seemed very sitcom-y, which is good. I feel like that's what they're clearly going for that with this show. Didn't care for the whole Pixar line thing when he was like, oh, you need to tap into your anger. She was like, oh, well, show me a Pixar movie. Hello, Disney. Yes, we know it's one of your shows. You can stop with this, okay? Obvious product placement is obvious. This is also where the whole anger and fear is just the baseline of women existing line comes from, but more on that later. But anyway, she hulks out, and this is the first time she's consciously hulking out. Bruce notices that her baseline personality and intelligence are intact. For Jen, She-Hulk is not an alternate personality, like Hulk is separate from Bruce Banner. Jen and She-Hulk are one and the same. So we can see that, you know, she's starting to become more comfortable with it, but we don't really know why yet. The show is going in a different direction than how the comic book went, and I don't care for it very much. It's not because it's different than the comic, it's because it's being lazily executed, and I think it may be taking this character in a direction which may be more harmful than the character than good. I covered in depth She-Hulk's origin in the comics and her existence as a character for a while. in my midweek waifus episode on She-Hulk, which will be linked in the video somewhere around here. Feel free to give that a good watch. So I'm not going to dive too much into that. But basically, She-Hulk started off raging out just like Bruce did. The audience didn't like that. So Marvel shifted gears. John Byrne got on the book. And basically, they revamped She-Hulk and wrote it in story as her becoming at peace with the Hulkness, and she actually preferred being like that because it gave her a humongous confidence boost, because now she's like the head turner and stuff that she always wanted to be. And being able to stop moving trucks with like one bare hand also is a nice fringe bonus. So it was more of that. This one seems like it's more going in the route of, hey, cuz, I know you're the Hulk because you're always angry and that's how you mastered being the Hulk. And I mastered that too instantly because I'm a woman and my life is hard because of that. This is another heavy-handed feminist theme of women life hard because men. I've said this before, I will say it again. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using feminist themes or any other type of themes in media. I just want good execution. It's the same problem we had with Captain Marvel. You had her saying all this stuff, and we kept seeing in these flashbacks that men are being mean to her, but we're not seeing the effect it has on her, how it's holding her life back. It's just men mean, men bad, and so me mad. And then that doesn't relate to what she's going through in the present for Captain Marvel, because not only was she an accomplished test pilot, I want to say, or maybe an actual pilot in the Air Force at the time, but then she was also a member of this Kree fighting force. All this stuff you've talked about, men bad, men bad, men bad, but then you're not showing how the badness relates to her or makes her struggle. We saw Steve Rogers be kicked around and get the shit kicked out of him because he was a frail, sickly little kid growing up in the Depression era. We saw Peter Parker be dragged through the coals because he was a nerd, and we could empathize with them and connect with them. Even if we haven't been through exactly what they've been through, we see it and we see how they deal with it, and that's a level of humanity that is necessary in order to really sink your teeth into a character, especially a main character. So if you're just going to have someone say, oh, my life hard because men, but not actually do anything with that, that is called lazy writing. That is called people are not going to connect with your character. At best, it's going to be a signal boost to some women and feminists, but you're not going to hook a lot of men with that, who are the majority of your watching audience, and you're also going to miss a good portion of women who don't want to be pandered to and just said, hey, me woman, you know how you're a woman and you deal with this because woman. Nothing actually in this show is going to actually show that. I'm just going to say it and you're going to know that it's true because you're a woman. The same way how you can have a black character in something and just say, hey man, the cops be racist, and all the black people's supposed to just love it and eating up, because we all know inherently that the cops are just racist because we all have the same experiences because we're a monolith. Thanks, I fucking hate it. Anyways, time goes on. They do little training montages of Bruce teaching Jen how to Hulk, and some of it's good. They have the parts where they're doing like boulder throws and yoga and shit, and they're like, haha, well, Jen does this better. But then I don't really have a problem with that, because I read that more as just competitiveness between cousins. That's all I see that as. And to be fair, every time Jen would one up Bruce would then like 10 up her. Like, he'd chuck the boulder a few feet, and then she'd chuck a boulder a few more feet, and then he'd launch a boulder into the stratosphere, and it would catch fire as it exited Earth's freaking ozone layer. Again, the banter's dope. The banter's pretty cool. But then, as the whole cousin retreat thing wraps up, we get into one of the other humongous, unavoidable problems in this show: the CGI. So at some point, she decides, okay, I've had enough of this Hulk training shit, I'm ready to go. And he like, nah, you can't just leave like that, which is a good point, because being the Hulk is a huge responsibility, and if you don't know how to keep it under control, you will destroy everyone and everything around you, a point that he makes explicitly multiple times. Good on him. Hulk makes a good mentor. Who'da thunk it? But anyway, she like, nah, man, I'm out. I don't want none of this Hulk life. I ain't asked to be no superhero. I'm ready to go. I need my lawyer life back with my cool office that I just got. So she hops in the Jeep and she gets ready to go. And he gets in front of the Jeep to stop it, obviously. And she's just like, nah. And then she takes off and like runs him over. Keep in mind, he's Professor Hulk. He's not regular Bruce Banner. He's Professor Hulk. How is a Jeep steamrolling this man? Not only is that a problem, but then when she like stops and he flies off, he flies into this grouping of boulders and completely smashes them. So how the hell is he heavy enough to smash through boulders when he's fallen off a car, but the car picked him up and like drove with him on the hood? The writers of the show have spoken about how they were not equipped to write a show with CGI characters, and oh my god, it shows. They also said they really weren't ready to write a show with trial scenes. That also shows. As someone who likes him some good trial scenes and court shows and stuff, boy, I mean, I know it's first episode, but you're not starting at 1, you starting at -100. But, okay, fine. It's fine because now we're at the CGI and we have to talk about it. So everyone's dragged the show through the dirt for the terrible CGI. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but yes, the way the stuff looks is not the problem for me. It's the fact that it is clearly so fake. I can deal with late PS3, early PS4 level graphics if I can still feel it. That's why I love gaming so much, because I can be fully immersed even when I know clearly it's fake. That's why this is Uncanny Valley, because it doesn't have the clear fakeness but 100% effort of a video game, nor does it have the actual weight and feel of real life. It's clearly trying to be real life but failing miserably. Like with when the Hulk gets hit by a Jeep and flies into boulders. How does that happen? During the fight, the Hulk does his like thunderclap thing and, does the thing. She gets blown back and then she gets up and tries to do it. This is the most unintentionally funniest scene I've seen in anything Marvel related. That clap was so bad. And then when she starts doing it fast, like it looked like one of them early internet graphics of just like this barely rendered 3D thing doing a thing over and over again. It was like the GIF's grandfather. There's really no nice way to say it. It was just terrible. But anyway, we get through that, and they make up because they crash into his little beach house bar thing, and then she helps him fix it, quote unquote. And he's like, all right, if you want to go back, that's cool. And so she goes back, and now we're back to the present day. She goes into this trial, and she gets ready to do her whole lawyer spiel, and then Titania shows up, played by Jamila Jamil. And Jen, at this point, because Nikki knows that she's She-Hulk, Nikki is like, girl, you better transform. This bitch about to run over all of us. And she like, right now, but I just got this. I like this outfit. She like, girl, if you don't take off them shoes and go handle your business. So she takes off her shoes and goes to handle her business. And it's bad. This is the end of the fight. This is the end of the episode fight. And it's bad. It is terrible. The camera work, the choreography, all of it is just underneath the foundation levels of trash. There is zero sense of danger. Jen just washes Titania immediately after transforming. Not even a little of a hint of struggle. I am so confused by so much of this thing. How does Titania throw the table at Jen, implying that she's, I don't know, strong enough to both hold and handle it, but then when Jen catches it and throws it back at Titania, it clobbers her. That does not make sense. Once again, this show was clearly written by people who don't understand how to incorporate CGI into action. That does not make sense. You can't have a character who in 1 second is strong enough to chuck a table that is several hundred pounds, and then when said table is thrown back at them, it just completely demolishes them. Why not have Jen throw it back at her and then Titania like destroys it in the air, and then while she's busy doing that, Jen runs up through the debris and like tackles her or something. I don't know if that's good, but it's better than what happened. Oh, but that kick, that flying kick, we got to talk about that kick. That was some straight up wire fu, and not good wire fu like in a serious martial arts film or funny wire fu in a comedy martial arts film. It's just bad. It's bad wire fu, bad choreography is shit. And then that little Power Ranger ass punch that Jen used to finish Titania off, it was just dumb. The whole thing was just dumb. I know they're going to end up fighting again later in the show, but this was just a terrible introduction to Titania and a terrible fight. But at least afterwards, the show ended and we got Who's That Girl playing by Eve playing in the background. So score win for insert song and outro. Yay. And then the outro itself is done in like court sketches style. Yay. I don't know, y'all. This first episode, there are good things about the show. Like I said, Tatiana Maslany does a great job as Jen, even though I don't care for a lot of the material they gave her. Laying it on thick with all this feminism for no reason. Just write it into the show and you can show some of this stuff and not have it majorly detract from the actual show itself. Stop having 85 powwow moments to sit down and talk about how hard it is to be a woman living among men, even though we see her walking around and it's not even that bad. And this is not me saying women don't deal with anything. Clearly they do. I'm saying this show didn't actually convey that. It did it in the laziest and simplest way possible and just expected us to just say, oh, yep, that's right, that's valid because she's a woman, and then just have Jen say that over and over again and that be good enough. And I'm sorry, that's just not good writing. You cannot have a character who goes through something and not have us witness the thing they're going through. You have to show it. You have to actually have us see how the character deals with this. Let us see the effect it has on them, okay? And I know some people might be saying, oh, well, the effect is it makes her Hulk out. But it doesn't make sense because we go from her getting ready to go to this court case and her best friend bigging her up about how awesome she is and she done all this stuff, and then next scene she's standing outside a bar and some dudes are catcalling her and being assholes, but that's making her Hulk out. Stop having everything just be she's a female character. What's her problem? She's a female. I'm sorry, but females deal with other problems other than simply existing as women. Is that a revolutionary thing to say? I don't know anymore. I don't know where the line is anymore because the line changes every day. She-Hulk dealt with all types of shit in the comics, has dealt with all types of shit in the comics, in the cartoons, and in everything she's been in. And yeah, you could trace some of that back to relationships between men and women. You can trace some of that back to the gender dynamics of men and women in our society. But at no point is that the totality of her character. That is not who she is. You're not actually having us connect with her as a character. You're saying, oh, well, the problem is just she's a woman. And so she just deals with stuff as a woman. Not because it's Jen Walters. Not because of anything specific to her as a person. No, it's just, oh, she's a woman. That's all you need. That's all you need. The CGI was absolutely dog shit. Even though the quality of it, when it's still looked better, once it's in motion, complete trash. And the trash especially shows when they're interacting or doing anything that requires sound or some type of collision with another surface. There is zero weight. These are the Hulks. This is supposed to be the most damage and impact ever. And even when they're wrecking shit, it just feels so fake. There is no immersion when I watch these people fight. So that's episode 1. I wanted so much better for this show. I knew I probably wasn't going to get it, but holy terrible writing Batman. Holy half-ass CGI Batman. Holy heavy-handed social message Batman. Thank you for watching and listening. This has been Anime with Solid State Reviews, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Episode 1. Spoiler alert, it ain't no Harvey Birdman. And I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.